Hey, John, I am so sorry that I got you in trouble with the nurses. I didn't mean to do that. I just was telling them what you told me to do. Imagine having that as a hallucination, truly believing something that didn't happen. Well, that happened to me for over a week after I came out of my coma. I'm Tammy Becker, and we are going to be talking about what it's like to have hallucinations after coming out of a coma so that we can relate them and have empathy for those mental health patients that experience this horrific thing. So let's get started. So when I came out of my coma, and if you missed the last few episodes, go back and watch them. I could not touch my hands. I didn't know the date. I didn't know the time. And there were so many things that were real to me that my husband ended up telling me are not. The funny thing about hallucinations is they stay up here like a memory. Those hallucinations stay up here as memories. So I really thought for a solid week until those drugs started coming out of my system and they were lessening the painkillers, that those memories and those events and those things really happened to me in the hospital. Apparently they didn't, though. But the mind plays so good at tricks on you that to this day they're still totally real with me. I'll tell you one of these hallucinations. I was in the hospital room. I was by myself. My husband hadn't been in that morning yet. Must have been pretty early. But I hadn't been fed yet because I had to pass this tasting test in order to be able to swallow food because I was intubated for so long. They wanted to make sure I wasn't going to choke and things like that. So in my mind, I'm like, oh, they're starving me. I want some food. And they wouldn't give me food. They wouldn't give me water. And my hands weren't working. And I remember I was allowed to use the sponge and the ice water, but I couldn't have the ice. So I remember trying to grab for the ice, and I ate some ice anyway. Wasn't supposed to, but then I accidentally dumped it all over me. So I lied. The drugs made me lie. I just told them that I dumped it on me because I was hot. So I got the ice chips taken away from me. And then a little bit later that day, I heard my girlfriend Lori down the hall. And she's telling them, you guys are not feeding my friend, and I am coming. I'm going to take her home. And I heard the nurses like, here, let me go get her chart. Let me explain to you why she can't go home yet. And Lori's kind of arguing with him. Then I heard her husband Don there. And so I started yelling from my hospital bed to him, just come down here and see me. And the nurse is like, no, you wait here until we bring you this chart. And then one of the nurses says, well, she can't come home. She doesn't have any clothes anyway. So I heard Lori ran into another friend that just happened to be in the hospital and says, I have a sweatsuit in my locker, so I'll go down and get the sweatsuit and she could go home with you in that. So then they brought Lori the paperwork, and she was reading down there and going over it and talking back and forth to Dawn, and I'm trying to yell at her, just come and see me, and they're saying don't take her home, and she's saying, Dawn, maybe we shouldn't take her home, look at the charts, and I'm at least come see me, Lori, it's okay if you can't take me home, come see me. Meanwhile, the guy came in that was gonna do the taste test so I could eat my food, and I'm yelling, and I'm telling you, I'm as yelling loud down the hall at the top of my voice. The nurse comes in, what are you yelling at? I says, you're trying to keep me here. You are trying to make me stay here. My friend wants to take me home. She goes, I have your meds. I says, I am not taking those meds. And I was arguing with her, and I was screaming and yelling, and this guy's trying to give me the taste test. And finally I kept yelling at Lori and Dawn, and then finally they just left, and my heart was broken that they didn't at least come in and say hi to me. And I calmed down, and the nurse came in a little bit later, and I told her, I says, I'm sorry, I'm going to be good now. I'll take my medicine and blah, blah, blah. And so when my husband got there, he came into the room and proceeded to tell me, that didn't happen. And I'm like, yeah, it happened. It happened. John called Lori. It happened. He goes, Tammy, Lori's not even here. She's at home. It didn't happen, honey. I'm sorry. Well, I just let it go with him. But in my mind, I'm like, he is so totally wrong. He is totally wrong. That happened. And to this day, we laugh about it, me and Lori and Don and John. But it didn't happen. But in my mind, it's like, how you get past these things? Because that was just one of a week's worth of hallucinations that I had. I literally went into, I had this thing in my neck that was to catch blood clots because I did have a blood clot, and I had to go in and get that taken out because it was going to grow together. So apparently when I was down there, I was telling them I couldn't stand, and I must have told them all this stuff. And they came back, and my doctor came to me. He goes, you do not do the orders here. We do the orders. I don't even remember that. So I was having hallucinations, and then I was having memory loss. What a week that was, my friend. But what God showed me through those hallucinations is, what about all of our friends and people that have mental disorders that are not treated? I mean, I know that you've seen them. We see people walking down the street. They're talking to themselves. To them, they're right there. I mean, you see it. I was experiencing this. It was so real. It was so real, and it's still real today as a memory. So to these people with the mental disorder, these are real things. These are real things. And people make fun of them. We shouldn't do that. We should pray for them. We should pray, because in our hearts, it's if you've ever experienced a hallucination on medicine that you've been put on in a hospital, then you know what I'm talking about. It's unbelievable that you continue to have this memory way after the hallucination. And I have several. So these poor people, I just ask that you have an empathetic heart. Have sympathy towards them. Pray for them when you see these individuals on the street, because they really do think they're talking to somebody. Somebody's really there. And how do we know God isn't there with them? How do we know they're not really talking to God, that God's not just walking along, that his presence is with them? And that might be the only interaction that they get all day. We don't know. We don't know what they're doing, but I just ask, and because God has laid this on my heart through me experiencing hallucinations, to have compassion for others, to pray for others with mental disabilities, my friends. And that's what we're going to end this session today. Next week, I'm going to talk to you about trying to get up and walk, my first steps with the spinal fusion and what goes on after that process. That was a tough process as well. This was such a long event in my life, and it's still going on today. So I'm so happy that you are joining me on this series. Again, my name is Tammy Becker. Please come back and visit next week on Wednesday when I release the next episode. And don't forget to subscribe and hit my bell, and visit us on the web at youministries.com. And don't forget to come fellowship with us in our Facebook group, You Ministries. See you next time. Those hallucinations, hallucid.